What if the truth you seek isn't hidden behind locked doors, but inside silence itself? What if the biggest secrets aren't buried underground, but filed away under classified, protected not by walls, but by indifference? Every civilization tells its people that information is power. Yet few dare to ask, power for whom? For the people, or for the few who decide what the people should know? Before we begin, if stories like this speak to you, stories about morality, truth, and the cost of knowing, please consider subscribing. It keeps this project alive and helps the light reach a little further into the dark. There is an old saying, trust once broken never fully returns. In every nation, every era, the struggle between transparency and secrecy is like a pendulum. It swings with fear, politics, and pride. Too much transparency and chaos creeps in. Too little, and corruption blooms in silence. Between those two extremes lies the fragile balance of civil responsibility. A democracy, they say, is a house built on trust. Not blind faith, but earned belief. Citizens lend their faith to leaders. Leaders owe their honesty in return. But what happens when that honesty becomes optional, hidden behind phrases like "for national security" or "restricted access"? The question isn't who hides, it's why. When the public asks where the money goes, where decisions are made, or why certain events never see daylight, they are not questioning patriotism. They are exercising it. A true patriot does not obey without thought. They care enough to question. Accountability, after all, is not a threat to power. It is its truest measure. Throughout history, secrecy has been both a shield and a sword. Ancient empires stored scrolls of forbidden knowledge in sealed chambers. Monarchs erased records that didn't fit the story they wanted to tell. Even modern societies, with their digital archives and open constitutions, sometimes drown truth in red tape. The more advanced the system, the more sophisticated its ways of concealment. But here's the paradox. People rarely demand transparency until it's too late. When trust is high, curiosity sleeps. It's only when crisis arrives, when an economy falters, when scandals leak, when systems crack, that the public awakens to the question, what else don't we know? Transparency isn't about distrust, it's about prevention. It's the quiet understanding that honesty today prevents betrayal tomorrow. Yet time and again, history repeats itself. Files locked away, budgets unaccounted for, actions justified by fear. And each time the same explanation returns. It's complicated, and it always is. But behind that complexity lies something simpler: fear. The fear that the truth might weaken authority, that the numbers might provoke outrage, that accountability might expose imperfection. But no government, no institution, no organization has ever fallen because of transparency. They fall because of what's revealed after the cover-up. Think of the lessons left by history's great disclosures, when hidden projects were unveiled, when secret programs were brought to light. At first came outrage, then debate, then reform. Painful, yes, but cleansing. Because in the end, truth, like water, always finds its way through the smallest cracks. Some say the public doesn't need to know everything, that ignorance can be a kind of protection. But who decides what the people can handle? The truth doesn't need to be comfortable to be necessary. Information, when shared, doesn't weaken a nation, it strengthens its conscience. Imagine a system where every dollar spent, every policy signed, every contract awarded could be traced in real time. Imagine if citizens didn't have to dig, the data simply lived in daylight. Such a system isn't fantasy, it's the future of accountability, but it demands courage, technology, and above all, humility. Humility is the hardest virtue for power to learn. It requires those in authority to say, we might be wrong. It demands systems that allow for correction, not concealment. And it gives citizens not just the right but the responsibility to watch, question, and participate. The idea of an audit, whether financial, moral, or institutional, isn't about punishment, it's about alignment. It's a mirror held up to systems that often forget they serve human beings, not the other way around. The point isn't to find fault, it's to ensure function. A transparent structure doesn't eliminate mistakes, but it turns them into lessons instead of scandals. Let's step back and ask a simple question. What is the cost of secrecy? For individuals, it erodes trust. In families, it breeds distance. In governments, it breeds cynicism. For societies, it can rot the very foundations of collective belief, the invisible thread that binds people to one another. When people stop believing that truth is possible, democracy becomes a performance, not a promise. Transparency isn't a luxury, it's oxygen. Without it, societies slowly suffocate under the weight of suspicion and rumor. Once people believe everything is hidden, they start believing nothing is true. And yet transparency alone isn't enough. It must be paired with literacy, the ability of citizens to understand what they see. Numbers mean little without context. Data means nothing without empathy. The moral power of a society lies not in how much it knows, but in how wisely it uses that knowledge. In the age of algorithms, even information can be weaponized. Facts can be rearranged into narratives and narratives into fear. True transparency requires discernment. There's a story told about a wise teacher who kept two boxes. One was labeled "The Truths That Heal," and the other, "The Truths That Harm." That's the balance transparency seeks, the courage to reveal and the wisdom to do it responsibly. To know that honesty isn't noise, it's harmony, a rhythm between the right to know and the duty to protect. So what do we as ordinary citizens owe to this equation? Responsibility. The responsibility to ask questions without malice, to demand truth without rage, and to hold systems accountable without dismantling the faith that keeps them standing. Every time someone demands clarity, in spending, in decision-making, in leadership, they are not attacking, they are participating. They are saying, "This is my world too, and I care enough to look closer." When people stop asking, power stops answering. That's when systems decay, not with explosions, but with silence. And so transparency isn't a war against power, it's an act of partnership. The citizen and the institution are not enemies, they are reflections of one another. One gives consent, the other owes honesty. That is the social contract that defines modern civilization. At the end of every hidden story, of every buried report, lies a simple truth. Secrecy serves the few. Transparency serves the many. But transparency without courage is just theater, a show of openness masking deeper control. Real transparency begins when systems are strong enough to show their flaws. And perhaps that is the truest measure of moral maturity, not perfection, but accountability. We live in an era where trust is the rarest currency. People trade outrage more easily than facts. Yet the moral power of truth is still undefeated. It may bend under pressure, but it never breaks. So the next time you read about a system that resists questions, remember this: what's hidden today becomes history's scandal tomorrow. Silence has never protected anyone from consequence. It only delays the moment when the truth demands to be seen. Transparency is not about opening every door. It's about ensuring that no door becomes a prison for the truth. It is about building a future where questions are welcomed, not feared, where honesty is not the exception but the expectation. The price of secrecy is always higher than the discomfort of truth. So ask, question, care. Because every time you demand clarity, you remind power that it belongs to the people who believe, not the people who hide. And if you believe that truth, real, fearless truth, still matters, then subscribe, stay with us, and let's keep the light on.